Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And Fergus is off the leash because of their insistence on suspending him for 7 days. Their insistence on sort of backing the Greens over their own party members, and their attempt to try and put a muzzle on the only real good politician they have. The SNP have created their own particular brand of retribution, because Fergus is he's off. He's saying things. He's calling now for that vote on whether the Butte House Agreement should be broken. He's claiming that Hamza Yousaf is a coward, too cowardly to do it. He's moaning about the Greens. He's saying that they should be foisted with the bill. And what are they going to do? There is very little they can do against Fergus Ewing, but he is insisting that he's not leaving the SNP. He says he wants to carry on and change it from within. Well, Fergus, you've had 25 years to do that and it hasn't worked. I think it may be unchangeable. You're surrounded now, I think, by sharks, charlatans and crooks. But let's have a look to what you're saying and let's see how you are attacking the Greens and Hamza Yousaf. Here goes. So, Fergus Ewing launches new broadside against the extremist Greens as divided SNP fight like gnats in a sack. They keep using that, but it's fine. It's a good enough term. The SNP rebel's suspension from the party was confirmed yesterday after he voted to sack Lorna Slater as minister following her chaotic, terrible handling of the doomed deposit return scheme. Funnily enough, we said from day one it was never going to work. It was never going to work. She was in charge and we knew it would end in failure because the woman is an absolute moron. But everybody said, no, you're doing this wrong, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong. They were insisting that they were right and it was costing millions, and yeah, of course it was going to fail. It was always going to fail when you had that bimbo in charge. Anyway, Fergus Ewing has launched a new broadside against the Scottish Greens, labelling them extremists and calling on Patrick Harvey and Lorna Slater to pick up the £88 million bill for the failed DRS. And the rest, I mean, the supermarkets and that have had to fork out as well. He also hinted that Hamza Yousaf was too afraid to put the Butte House Agreement to a vote of SNP members. Of course he is. He knows he'll lose. Now, Hamza Yousaf ties himself off. He's like so pro-green. We got to keep him in, got to keep him in. He doesn't understand the situation. He doesn't know that he can do anything he like and they won't go. But he keeps doing it. And now he's in a position where he can't not have them. If he was told you've got to have a vote whether to stay, he's in the position of which way does he vote? I want to vote to stay. Well, vote to stay, but the rest of the people will vote to get rid of them. And then you'll be on the wrong side. Or you just sort of say, well, what's the popular vote and go that way. But then you're voting against something that you've previously heartily defended. So either way, Hamza Yousaf, you're going to come out looking like a complete moron again. What an arse. I mean, never commit to something beyond your control. And the Greens are beyond anyone's control. Mentally ill. He really is. Anyway, the veteran nationalists, getting back to Fergus, the veteran nationalists' 1 week suspension from the party was upheld last evening, leading to him to blast the current leadership of the SNP as authoritarian. He said, and requiring strict obedience to the leadership at the expense of personal freedom of any individual member, which we mentioned earlier. He said Mr. Ewing confirmed that he was not going to leave the party, which he's represented at Holyrood since 1999. But he told BBC Scotland's Good Morning Scotland that he would fight from within to get rid of the dreadful deal that was the extremist Greens. He was originally suspended by the SNP last year after he voted no confidence in Miss Slater following her handling of the DRS. Which was axed by the Scottish Government following months of worry by business. It has cost the public purse millions due to the cash handed to Circularity Scotland, the body tasked with leading the initiative, which then almost immediately went bust. Because, hey, Lorna Slater, genius that she is the sort of person that would do things like this. She would say, I know, I'm going to put millions of pounds into something that we haven't got up and running yet, and then hope that the money doesn't run out before we do all the other work that we need to do to make it work. It's criminal. It's stupidity on a criminal scale. It really is. Anyway, I have trouble thinking down to that level, put it that way. Critics of the Nationalist Party pointed out that his latest attack on the Greens showed that the SNP was bitterly divided, and they're continuing to fight like gnats in a sack. Mr. Ewing highlighted why he chose to go against Mr. Yousaf's administration. He said, "I spent 2 years seeking to persuade informally my former government colleagues, but they sadly wouldn't listen." He said, "I have no choice but to vote with my conscience and for my constituents." He said, "Isn't that the whole idea? Isn't that why people send MSPs to Holyrood to speak out? Not to be ciphers or automatons. I mean, if my constituents wanted a doormat, they could have gone to B&Q. And there she is, look, the brains trust. "Look at me, I'm brilliant, I'm the bestest ever. I can do anything if I set my mind to it. Except for that one little thing. No, you can't. You haven't got a mind." He pointed out that of all the people he spoke to about Miss Slater and the deposit return scheme, he felt that she was incompetent and that the 88 million spent by the government should be covered by her and Mr. Harvey. He said maybe they should split the bill between them as a surcharge of £40 million. He said, "But in absence of that, I am today calling for an investigation into how on earth so much public money was wasted over such a long period, and that businesses called out this scheme 2 years before it was eventually ditched." Everybody, we were laughing for months, every week almost. There was something going wrong. Lorna Slater this, Lorna Slater that, Lorna Slater something else. She became the butt of so many jokes. I'll tell you what, launched so many videos with her complete indulgence of stupidity. She was shrouding herself. You couldn't see through the miasma of dim. It was appalling. Anyway, he refused to quit the party as he wants to continue his fight for his constituents on topics such as upgrading the A9 and A96, which were promised in the SNP manifesto. Hey ho, we know what their promises mean. He said the public are entitled to expect that when we deliver what was in our manifesto. Instead, they got a Green Deal, which was never mentioned until after the election was safely over. The SNP are saying, well, hang on, look, we vote, okay, Scotland voted to remain in the UK, but then you had Brexit, so circumstances changed. Well, look, what about the people who voted SNP? Said, oh, well, we voted SNP, and then you went and talked to the Greens. We didn't vote for the Greens. So circumstances have changed. Can we have a vote on the Greens to see whether we want them? After all, that's what the SNP are trying to push another independence on. So, hoist with your own petard there. The argument's good enough for one, it's surely got to be good enough for the other. Anyway, he says, I think the membership of the SNP should have the chance to vote now that we've had the experience of 2.5 years of the abysmal mismanagement and duff policies from the Green Party, which have only served to bring the SNP down in terms of votes and trust. That's because the SNP tie themselves to a toxic bunch of arseholes. There's no other way of putting it. The Scottish Tories attacked Mr Yousaf for continuing to forge a path with the unpopular Scottish Greens. Craig Hoy claimed that the suspension of Mr Ewing highlights how divided the SNP are over Humza Yousaf's pandering to the extremist Greens. And he is. I'm surprised that anyone had lowered themselves, humiliate themselves to the point of kissing the ring of the Greens, for heaven's sake. He's scared of Patrick Harvey. How can anyone be scared of Patrick Harvey? Patrick Harvey is a little nothing. He's an insect. You can crush him underfoot. He's so small. And he's got a wee gob on him, but he's like, just a little elbow in the face and he's done. I mean, honestly, Patrick Harvey, he hasn't got the wit to even have an argument, so he's got to resort to kind of bullying and brute force. But honestly, you just pick him up and say, Patrick, stop it, and put him down again, couldn't you? Anyway, he said he's been punished for daring to point out the obvious, that Lorna Slater should have been sacked for her shambolic handling of the DRS. The decision shows how Humza Yousaf and the SNP have turned their back on rural Scotland and the major issues that are affecting those areas. Even Fergus Ewing recognises that the SNP are failing them. But Humza Yousaf, he says, is hell-bent on defending the deal with the Greens, which he previously said was worth its weight in gold, rather than listening to rural Scotland. And this suspension proves that the SNP are all too happy to fight like gnats in a sack, while also ignoring Scott's real priorities, and he is absolutely right. Trouble is, nobody listens. By the time they do, it's all far too late. But hey, you pay your money, you take your choice, and then you end up with something like that. Useless. Absolutely useless. Well over promoted. Hasn't got a clue what she's doing. And you've noticed you haven't heard much from her recently because even she's realised that people think very little of her. They think awful things of her. They all think that she's a bit thick and incapable and really not very good. She's been found out, basically. Coming up. So there you go. Fergus isn't leaving the SNP, but he is going to continue making life hard for Humza Yousaf and all the other morons that surround him in his cabinet of carbuncles and clowns, isn't it? Anyway, we'll finish there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and let's all go and laugh at the stupidity of the SNP. Bye.